Okay, pull the door shut. Lock it. Sit down. Because what Remy Ma said on that couch is not a gossip story. It is a receipt. It is a blueprint. And by the time I finish breaking this down, you're going to look at every quiet woman in your life completely differently. I'm telling you right now, the one line that everybody skipped over, the one little phrase she dropped in the middle of that interview like it was nothing, that one phrase explains the entire last 2 years of her silence, the entire Clarissa circus, the entire Papoose meltdown, and exactly why a 50-year-old man is currently chasing a hit like his life depends on it. And it does. It does depend on it. That is the whole point. That is what nobody on the internet is connecting right now, and that is what we are about to connect, you and me, right here in this video, because I refuse to let this moment pass without putting it on the record. So let me get this straight. Remy Ma sits down with Joe and Jaida. First real long-form interview in what feels like forever. The woman has been quiet, not hiding, quiet. There is a difference, and we're going to talk about that difference in a minute, because that difference is everything. She finally opens her mouth, and instead of doing what every blog wanted her to do, instead of dragging Clarissa by the lace front, instead of putting Papoose in a headlock on national audio, she does something that, if you were not paying attention, you completely missed. She drops a doctrine. A whole entire doctrine, 12 seconds long, and the entire internet ran past it to argue about a hairstyle. A hairstyle. Y'all are out here debating who copied whose lace, and meanwhile this woman handed every grown person watching a survival manual, and you almost let it slip through your fingers. Not on my watch. Let's get into this. Because this mess, this whole tangled, sticky, embarrassing, slow-motion car crash of a situation deserves a deep dive that nobody else is willing to give it. Everybody else is too busy chasing the shiny object. The boxing ring photo shoot, the knockoff hair, the stylist drama with the daughter, the makeup line promo. That is the bait. That is the chum in the water. And while everybody is splashing around in the chum, the actual story, the real story, the one that is going to age like wine, is sitting in plain sight. Remy told you exactly what is happening. She told you why. She told you who. She told you when it started. She told you how it ends. And she did it in the calmest, most disrespectful tone you have ever heard a woman use. Because that is what mastery sounds like. Mastery is quiet. Chaos is loud. Remember that. Write it down somewhere. Tape it to your bathroom mirror. Mastery is quiet. Chaos is loud. We're going to come back to that line at least 3 more times in this video. Get familiar. Now, the 1A and 1B thing. That is the whole interview. That is the headline. Forget everything else for a second. Forget the Remy Network app. Forget the Tubi comparison. Forget the 50-cent shout-out. Forget the blog discussion. We will get to all of it. I am not skipping a single beat. But the 1A and 1B doctrine is the thesis statement, and once I explain what she actually meant by it, the rest of the interview is going to click into place like Lego. You're going to see the whole picture. So lean in. This is the part nobody is telling you correctly. Everybody quotes it. Nobody decodes it. That difference is the entire reason this video exists. Here is what 1A and 1B means in plain English. When you are a working artist, a creative, a hustler of any kind, you are supposed to have a primary lane and a secondary lane. The primary lane is the dream. The secondary lane is the structure. The primary lane is the spotlight. The secondary lane is the scaffolding. Some people only ever build the spotlight. They never build the scaffolding. So the second the spotlight flickers, the second the algorithm shifts, the second the radio stops spinning the song, they're in free fall. No floor under them. No backup. No business. No bag. No nothing. Just a man with a microphone and a memory of 2005. And what Remy was saying, and she said it so smoothly that if you blinked you missed the knife going in, is that some people in this industry, some people very close to her, never bothered to build that secondary lane. Never bothered to set up a 1B. Never diversified. Never invested. Never created a fallback because they thought the hit was always going to come. And when the hit does not come and you are 40, 50, knocking on whatever door is still open, what do you have? What do you actually have? You have your pride and your wife's career. That is what you have. And if your wife's career is bigger than yours and your pride cannot handle it, you are going to do desperate things. Desperate things like wifing up a clone. Desperate things like running PR campaigns through your daughter. Desperate things like sitting in front of Vlad for 2 hours pretending you are above the drama while you are clearly the architect of the drama. That is a 1B problem. That is a man without scaffolding. That is the doctrine. You see what she did? She did not call him broke. She did not call him bitter. She did not call him a hater. She did not call him anything. She laid out the structural reality of his life and let everybody do the math at home. That is surgical. That is courtroom-level disrespect dressed in church clothes. Remy is a different kind of operator now. 2 years of silence will do that to you. 2 years of watching people scream into the void will sharpen your blade in a way that being on the timeline cannot. People do not understand the gift of stepping back. They think silence is weakness. Silence is the gym. Silence is where you build the muscle that everybody else is going to feel later. And Remy walked back into the arena fully cooked. Let me get into this because there are layers. There are layers, baby. There are layers. Let's rewind for a second because I want to make sure everybody is on the same page. If you have been outside, if you have been on a digital detox, if you have been raising kids and missed the last 6 months of internet warfare, here is the quick map. Remy Ma is the Bronx-born, Grammy-nominated, top-tier rapper who has been in the game for over 20 years, who has gone through a public legal situation, who has rebuilt herself as a media personality, an actress, a co-host, an entrepreneur, a wife, a mother, all of that. She and her husband Papoose have been one of the most public hip-hop couples for the better part of 2 decades. Then somewhere along the line, something cracked. Something always cracks. And into that crack walks a woman the internet has lovingly nicknamed the Remy clone. Because she literally looks like a budget version of Remy. The hair, the eyes, the makeup style, the way she dresses, the body shape she chases, the cosmetic choices she makes, the cadence she copies in her interviews. It is not subtle. It is not even trying to be subtle. It is the loudest, most public, most blatant act of identity theft I have ever watched in real time. And the husband, the man who is supposed to be 1A in his own household, is right there in the middle of it, photographing it, promoting it, narrating it, monetizing it. And the whole internet is sitting there with popcorn going, well, what is Remy going to do? What is Remy going to say? When is Remy going to snap? And Remy did not snap. That is the crazy part. That is the part nobody can wrap their head around. Because we live in a culture that has confused volume with victory. We have been trained, conditioned, programmed to believe that the loudest woman wins, that the woman with the longest live, the most receipts, the meanest clapback, the fastest comeback song is the one who took the trophy home. That is a lie. That is a beautifully packaged, algorithmically rewarded, dopamine-laced lie. And Remy put a stake through the heart of that lie on Joe and Jaida's couch. She walked in there, sat down, and proved with her whole entire chest that the woman who refuses to play the game is the woman who actually wins it. Because the game is rigged. The game was never built for her. The game was built to keep her engaged, keep her angry, keep her posting, keep her commenting, keep her clipping, keep her fueling somebody else's career off her own pain. And the second you understand that the game is the trap, the only winning move is to not play. That is what she said when she said attention is the root of all evil. That was not a throwaway line. That was a thesis. Attention is the root of all evil. In an attention economy where every blog post, every tweet, every reel, every comment is fed back into a machine that pays out in clicks and clout, attention is currency. And whoever can manufacture the most outrage gets the biggest paycheck. And the simplest way to manufacture outrage is to attack a woman who is bigger than you, stronger than you, more talented than you, more respected than you, and bait her into responding so the algorithm can split that response into 47 different clips and rebrand you as relevant. That is the entire model. That is the whole ecosystem. That is the food chain. And Remy refused to be food. Hold on. Let me say that one more time for the people in the back, because some of y'all are about to scroll past this, and I cannot let you. Remy refused to be food. Do you understand what that means in 2026? Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand how much money is left on the table when a woman of her stature decides she is not going to participate in the ritual sacrifice of her own peace for somebody else's brand build? She could have made $1 million a week being mad on the internet. She could have made a hit song every 6 weeks dragging the clone. She could have launched a podcast titled Stop Stealing My Face and run it for 10 seasons. She did not do any of that. Why? Because she understands something most people do not. She understands that the prize for winning the internet is more internet. And she does not want more internet. She wants a network. She wants an app. She wants documentaries. She wants residuals. She wants legacy. She wants the kind of money that compounds while you sleep. She wants 1A and 1B and 1C and 1D. She wants infrastructure. She wants the long game. Because the long game is the only game that pays out for real. This is where the unique angle of this entire conversation lives, and this is what nobody else is going to tell you. Everybody is doing surface-level commentary. Everybody is doing the who copied whose hair video. Everybody is doing the boxing ring photo shoot reaction. Everybody is recapping the Vlad interview. I am not doing that. I am not doing that today. Today we are talking about the 1A 1B doctrine and what it means for women who are tired of being somebody's only plan. Because that is the real story underneath all of this. There is a woman somewhere watching this video right now who is married to a man whose entire identity is wrapped up in a dream that is not paid out yet. There is a woman somewhere who has been carrying the household, paying the bills, building the brand, smiling through the photo ops, while her partner sits in a studio that he rents with her money chasing a hit that the universe is clearly not interested in delivering. There is a woman somewhere who is the 1A in her marriage and her partner is the 1B, and he resents her for it. He resents her for being capable. He resents her for being successful. He resents her for being the safety net while pretending to be the breadwinner. And the second a younger, dumber, louder, more agreeable woman crosses his path and tells him he is the king he always wanted to be, he is gone. He is gone with the wind. He is on a boat somewhere in a photo shoot with a knockoff version of his wife, and he is calling that romance. And the wife back home is supposed to clap, and smile, and not respond. Because if she responds, she is the crazy one. If she responds, she fed the beast. If she responds, the algorithm wins. If she responds, the clone gets a check. So she does not respond. And that is the doctrine. That is the whole thing. Listen, I need you to hear me. The reason this interview is going to be studied for years is not because of the gossip. It is because Remy laid out in real time, on camera, the operating manual for how to survive in a world where your humiliation is somebody else's rent money. That is what this is. We have entered an era where being somebody's victim is a business model. There are entire careers built on parasitic clout. There are entire careers built on the body, the face, the style, the energy of somebody else, and those careers can only exist as long as the host stays mad. The second the host stops feeding the parasite starves. And what we are watching right now in real time is the slow, agonizing, public starvation of a parasitic ecosystem. The clone keeps copying. The clone keeps posting. The clone keeps doing photo shoots in boxing rings with the husband's daughter as the stylist, which, by the way, is a sentence I cannot believe I said out loud. And the clone is getting less and less response, less and less reach, less and less juice, because the host cut off the supply. And without the supply, the parasite is a sad woman in a wig in a borrowed studio doing TikTok face moves into a ring light. Strip away the husband, strip away the drama, strip away the comparison videos, and what is left? An empty boxing ring and a borrowed identity. That is it. Now, let me get into the 50-cent piece because this is where Remy showed her hand and people did not catch it. When she started talking about 50 being a mogul, when she talked about him having security, when she talked about how you cannot get to him because he is too rich and too protected and too high up the food chain, she was not just complimenting 50. Read between the lines. She was telling the audience exactly where she is moving toward. She is mapping out her own ascension. She is saying, in code, I am building what he built. I am studying what he studied. I am setting up an empire so layered and so insulated that by the time anybody figures out how to attack me, I will already be 3 industries deep and unreachable. Because that is what 50 did. 50 did not respond to every diss. 50 stacked up books of business. He stacked up TV deals. He stacked up power. He stacked up brands. He stacked up real estate. He stacked up vodka. He stacked up shows. He stacked up so much 1B that the 1A became almost optional. He could lose a rap battle and not feel it because the rap battle was the smallest line item on his ledger. That is what Remy is building. The Remy network is not a side project. The Remy network is the scaffolding. It is the structural steel under the brand. It is the 1B becoming a 1A becoming a whole empire. And the fact that Papoose is over there obsessing about hits while Remy is launching networks tells you everything you need to know about who is winning the marriage and who has already lost it. Papoose. We have to talk about Papoose. Because this is the saddest part of the whole story, and I am going to say it with my whole chest. Papoose is a talented man. I am not here to do a hit piece. I am not here to drag him into oblivion. The man can rap. The man has bars. The man has been respected in the lyrical community for a long time. None of that is in dispute. What is in dispute is everything else. Because talent by itself is not a career. Talent is the ticket. Talent is the entry fee. Talent gets you in the room. After you are in the room, you have to actually build something. You have to develop infrastructure. You have to invest. You have to plant gardens that will feed you in winter. And Papoose, by all available evidence, did not plant those gardens. He kept doing freestyles. He kept dropping mixtapes. He kept showing up to lyrical debate panels. He kept arguing with 50 Cent on a public platform. And in the meantime, the music industry shifted 3 times under his feet. The streaming era happened. The TikTok era happened. The short-form era happened. And every shift, instead of pivoting, he doubled down on a model that had already stopped paying. That is the tragedy. That is the structural failure. Remy was the 1A and the 1B in that marriage. Remy was the income. Remy was the brand. Remy was the network. Remy was the everything. And when you are the everything for somebody who used to think they were the everything, resentment grows. Resentment grows in the dark like mold. And eventually that mold finds a clone, and the clone wears it like a perfume, and we are all here watching it stink up the timeline. This is the part where I have to address the people in the comments who are going to try to come for me and say I am being mean. I am not being mean. Mean would be assumptions. This is observation. Mean would be name-calling. This is pattern recognition. There is a man, almost 50 years old, in 2026, who is publicly dating a woman that the entire internet refers to as the budget version of his still legal wife, who is parading that woman around, who is having his daughter style that woman, who is sitting down for 2-hour interviews to defend that woman, who is selling makeup with that woman, who is still chasing a hit at an age when most rappers are chasing a real estate portfolio. That is not me being mean. That is the chronology. That is the timeline. That is what is publicly documented. And Remy, with all the grace she has, said the quiet part out loud one time, let it land, and went back to her network. Let's talk about Clarissa for a minute, because I cannot let her off the hook. She does not get to slide. The clone phenomenon is fascinating to me on a sociological level. It is fascinating because it represents a generation of women who have come up entirely on social media, entirely on aesthetic, entirely on imitation, and have been rewarded for imitation in a way that previous generations never were. The algorithm does not punish copying. The algorithm rewards copying. If you can replicate a successful look, a successful style, a successful sound, you can get clicks. You can get clout. You can get a deal. You can get a man. You can get a baby. You can get a brand. You can get all of it without ever having an original thought in your head. We have built an entire economy that pays women to be Xerox machines. And Clarissa is the patron saint of that economy. She is the canonized example. She has not had one original moment of fashion, hair, makeup, posture, cadence, or career strategy that was not first executed by Remy Ma. Not one. Go back. Look at the timeline. Every move she makes is a direct response to a Remy move. Remy walks out in a fit. Clarissa walks out in a knockoff fit 5 days later. Remy drops a song. Clarissa learns the song word for word and lip-syncs it on her live. Remy does an interview with a specific hairstyle. Clarissa is in the chair the next morning trying to recreate it. The pattern is so consistent, it is almost a clinical case study. Mimicry as monetization in the post-2020 attention economy. But here's the thing about clones. Clones have an expiration date. Clones cannot generate. Clones can only echo. And once the original stops generating new material for the clone to copy, the clone goes silent. Because the clone has no internal generator. The clone is a mirror, and a mirror with nothing in front of it is just a piece of glass. So when Remy pulled back, when Remy went into her 2 years of silence, Clarissa had nothing to copy. And what did she do? She started copying older Remy. She started copying Remy from 2017. She started copying Remy from the love and hip-hop era. She started recycling Remy's archive because she had no current material to feed off of. That is starvation behavior. That is desperation. That is what happens when the host turns off the faucet and the parasite has to go digging through old footage to find something to imitate. And now that Remy is back in the conversation with a fresh interview, what do we see? An immediate hairstyle copy. An immediate photo shoot copy. An immediate quote echo. The faucet turned back on for one interview, and the clone immediately ran to fill her tank. That is not a competitor. That is not a rival. That is a dependent. There is a clinical word for that. Codependent. And we're watching it play out in 4K. Okay, deep breath, because this is the part where I get a little personal and I want everybody at home to lean in. There is something Remy said about how she is tired of blowing people up that I want to put a magnifying glass on. She said she does not respond because she does not want to keep making people famous. That is a level of self-awareness that I do not think enough commentary has acknowledged. Think about what she is telling you. She is telling you that she is so powerful, so culturally weighted, so full of gravitational pull, that her response would lift somebody from anonymity into stardom. Her response is a launching pad. Her response is a green light. Her response is a cosign that, against her own will, makes whoever she is responding to into somebody. So she withholds the response. She withholds the lift. She refuses to be anybody's elevator. And that is the most underappreciated power move in modern celebrity history. We talk about Beyoncé not addressing Jay-Z's affair on a public stage and calling it grace. This is in that lineage. This is in that family of moves. The decision to not feed the moment. The decision to let the timeline starve. The decision to let the question hang in the air and never give it the answer it is begging for. Because the answer is the prize. The answer is the trophy. And once you understand that the question itself is the trap, you stop walking into it. Now Clarissa is sitting over there gassed up, hair on fire, head about to pop, doing photo shoots in boxing rings with a husband's daughter, putting out a makeup line, going on lives, talking about me at 31 versus you at 31, trying to bait Remy into engagement. Trying to find the magic combination of insults, allusions, and copies that will finally get the response. And Remy is sitting in her studio, launching a network. Do you see the asymmetry? Do you feel the weight difference? One is in the swimming pool splashing for attention. The other is in the boardroom signing distribution deals. They are not even on the same plane of existence anymore. It is not a competition. It is a category error. To call them competitors is like calling a bicycle a competitor of a 747. They are not in the same conversation. They are not in the same industry. They are not in the same orbit. And the only reason it ever felt like a competition is because the husband, who is supposed to be the buffer, who is supposed to be the wall, who is supposed to be the man, kept blurring the lines and pretending these two women were on equal footing. They are not. They never were. And every interview, every photo shoot, every clip out of the boxing ring is just more evidence that the gap is getting wider, not smaller. The wider the gap gets, the more frantic the imitation becomes. And the more frantic the imitation becomes, the more obvious it is to everybody that this is a sinking ship dressed up in lipstick. I have to come back to the daughter situation because that one got under my skin, and I do not think we have processed it enough as a community. The daughter is styling Clarissa. The daughter, Papoose's daughter, is now functioning as a brand consultant for the woman who is publicly humiliating his still legal wife. Sit with the family politics of that. The signal it sends. The damage it does. The trauma it builds. Because that daughter is going to grow up. That daughter is going to have her own relationships. That daughter is going to look back at this chapter and have to reckon with the role she played in it. And the people around her, the parent who put her in that position, the aunt who facilitated it, the manager who scheduled it, every adult who allowed a young woman to be the styling glue in her father's affair. All of those people failed her. Every single one. Because that is not a job. That is not a career opportunity. That is participation in a public betrayal. And we are watching it happen in real time, and the internet is laughing about it. We should not be laughing. We should be shaking our heads. We should be naming what it is. It is not entertainment. It is generational fracture being recorded on iPhone for likes. That is what it is. Let's pivot for a second because I want to talk about the Remy network, because nobody is talking about the Remy network, and the Remy network is the actual point of the interview. She did not sit down with Joe and Jaida to drag her husband. She did not sit down to address her clone. She did not sit down to defend herself. She sat down to promote a product, which is why the entire interview was a masterclass in keeping the main thing the main thing. She came in with a goal. She had a deliverable, and she kept the conversation orbiting around that deliverable while still managing to sneak in every single message she needed to deliver to the public, to her husband, to her clone, to her enemies, to her supporters, to her future business partners. That is media training at its highest level. That is what professionals do. That is what people who have something to lose look like when they sit down with a microphone. Compare that to the chaotic, hit-everything flailing arms energy of a 2-hour Vlad interview where a man tries to rehabilitate his image by making 17 different points and ending up making 0. Compare those two things side by side and ask yourself, who is the operator here? Who is the strategist? Who has the long-term plan? It is not a close call. The Remy network is going to be huge. I am calling it now. Come back to this video in 18 months. The Remy network, by the way she described it, is essentially a curated streaming environment. Think of it like a Tubi for a specific sensibility, with original content, documentaries, scripted shows, music projects, all under one umbrella. That is a real business. That is a real model. That is real revenue. That is real partnership opportunity. That is real licensing potential. That is real syndication. That is real syndication royalties. That is real. And in an environment where every artist of her generation is desperately trying to figure out what their next chapter looks like, she is 2 steps ahead of everybody. She is 3 steps ahead. She is in the building of the building that everybody else has not even applied to work in yet. That is what 1A and 1B and 1C and 1D and 1E looks like when a woman with a long memory and a longer plan finally decides to execute. The clone cannot copy this. The clone cannot replicate a network. You cannot Xerox infrastructure. That is the magic of the move. Remy went somewhere the clone literally cannot follow. And that is the chess play we are watching unfold. Imitation has a ceiling, and Remy just walked through the roof. I want to talk about the blog conversation too, because I think people glossed over it. When Remy talked about telling certain blogs not to post her, when she explained that even if they post her positively today, they will pivot and post her negatively tomorrow, because that is the entire business model of those particular blogs, she was naming the single biggest open secret in the celebrity gossip ecosystem. The big blogs are not your friend. They are not anybody's friend. They are content factories. They need to fill their feeds, and they need to fill their feeds with content that triggers strong emotion, because triggered emotion drives clicks, and clicks drive ad revenue. So the same blog that posts the cute family photo on Monday will post the divorce rumor on Tuesday, and the surveillance footage on Wednesday, and the alleged side chick on Thursday. That is the rotation. That is the cycle. And the second you let yourself become content for that machine, the machine will eat you. It will eat you alive. It will eat you with a smile on its face. So you have to opt out. You have to refuse to be a feed item. You have to stop letting them photograph you. You have to stop letting them comment on you. You have to stop tagging them. You have to stop engaging them. You have to starve the machine. And Remy is one of the only celebrities who has actually figured out how to do that, who has the discipline to do that, who has the patience to do that. Because it is hard. It is so hard. It feels like dying for a minute. It feels like irrelevance. It feels like the world is moving on without you. And then, slowly, the noise dies down, and the people who are eating your name for breakfast move on to the next victim, and you reappear on your own terms with a full plate and a clear strategy and a project to promote. That is the move. That is the move. That is the only move. Now, the part where she said attention is the root of all evil. Let me sit with that line one more time, because it is so layered. Attention is the root of all evil, not money. Money is what we have always been told. Love of money is the root of all evil. Old Testament, New Testament, your grandmother quoting Timothy. We grew up with that line. And Remy, in 2026, in the middle of a celebrity gossip interview, casually rewrote scripture. She rewrote it. She updated it for the algorithm age. Because in 2026, money flows from attention. Attention is the prerequisite. You cannot extract the money without extracting the attention first. So if you are a content creator, an influencer, an artist, a clone, a copycat, a low-rent imitation looking to monetize, you need attention. You need eyeballs. And you will do anything, sacrifice anything, betray anything to get those eyeballs. You will betray your husband's wife. You will betray your community. You will betray your dignity. You will betray your future. You will betray the person you used to be when nobody was watching. Because the eyeballs are the prize. And what Remy was warning us in that one sentence is that everything you see online right now is downstream of that one core corruption. Every ridiculous fight, every staged beef, every choreographed pylon, every hairstyle copy, every photo shoot in a boxing ring. All of it is downstream of attention. Attention is the engine. And the engine runs on the souls of people who do not know they are being burned for fuel. Hold on. I want to take a breath because I know this is heavy. I know this is heavier than the average gossip recap. I know some of you came here for the tea, and I am giving you a sermon, but it has to be this way today. Because this story is not actually about Remy Ma. This story is about every woman who has ever been mocked for choosing peace. Every woman who has ever been called weak for not responding. Every woman who has ever been told she is letting somebody win because she did not engage. Every woman who has ever sat in her car in the parking lot and decided not to respond to the text. Every woman who has ever closed the laptop and walked away from the comments. Every woman who has ever chosen the long game over the short game. This is for you. This is your sermon. Because what Remy is modeling is something the world does not want women to model, which is restraint as power. Walking away as victory. Silence as the loudest possible answer. And every time a woman of her stature does it on a public stage, it gives permission to 1,000 women at home to do the same thing in their lives. That ripple effect is not measurable on a YouTube analytics dashboard, but it is real. It is profoundly real. And it is the actual cultural impact of this interview that nobody is talking about because it does not fit in a 15-second TikTok clip. Let me get back into the specifics because I do not want to lose the thread. Let me get back to Clarissa for a hot second because there is one more thing I have to say. The boxing ring photo shoot. The boxing ring. Are you kidding me? The visual metaphor is so embarrassing, I do not know where to start. You are publicly the other woman. You are dating somebody else's husband. You have spent 2 years copying her style, and your big brand moment is a photo shoot in a boxing ring with you in fight gear with the daughter as your stylist? Do you know what that says? That says I am ready to fight. That says I am picking a fight. That says I am the challenger. And the moment you are the challenger, you have admitted publicly on the record that you are not the champ. The champ does not need to put on gloves. The champ does not need to step in the ring. The champ does not need to pose. The champ just is the champ. The challenger has to remind everybody that there is a fight to be had. The challenger has to ring the bell. The challenger has to swing. The champ stays home and counts her money. So when Clarissa stepped in that ring and posed with that caption about me at 31 versus you at 31, what she actually did, in semiotic terms, in symbolic terms, was confess publicly that she is the challenger. She announced her own subordination. She put it in writing. And the champion did not even acknowledge the bell. Because there is no fight. There has never been a fight. There will never be a fight. And the longer the challenger keeps swinging at air, the more she looks like the only person in the gym. Let me also flag something for everybody who is paying attention. The makeup line is the move. That is what this whole boxing ring photo shoot is for. It is a brand campaign. They are building a product. They need attention to launch the product. And the easiest way to get attention in this saturated economy is to attach yourself to a celebrity drama. So the entire boxing ring concept, the whole walk, pose, fight, strut narrative, that is just promotional architecture. They are using the Remy beef as a marketing budget. They cannot afford a real ad campaign. They cannot afford a real publicist. They cannot afford a real product launch. So they're leveraging the only currency they have, which is their proximity to a real celebrity, to spin engagement into eyeballs, into clicks, into product. That is the play. That is the whole play. And once you see the play, you cannot unsee it. The makeup line is the entire reason for the interview, the entire reason for the photo shoot, the entire reason for the digs, the entire reason for the copying. It is all along, dressed up, melodramatic, drawn out advertorial. And the public is footing the marketing bill with their attention. We are paying for their ad campaign by watching it. We are the budget. We are the funding. Every comment, every share, every duet, every reaction video is $1 in their till. So the second we stop reacting, the second we stop sharing, the second we stop commenting, the makeup line collapses. The whole business model collapses. Because the business model is parasitic by design. They cannot generate organic interest. They can only siphon it. And once the host stops bleeding, the parasite has nothing to drink. I want to talk about Easy the Block for a second because Remy mentioned in an indirect way that we do not actually know who she is dating. We do not know if she is single. We do not know if she is involved with somebody. We do not know if she is taking a break. We do not know any of it. And that is by design. That is intentional. She does not promote her dating life. She does not tag anybody. She does not post couple selfies. She does not let the public into that part of her existence. Compare that, again, to the photo shoot energy across the timeline. Compare it to the constant promotion of a relationship that everybody knows is built on a third party's pain. The contrast is the point. The contrast is the proof. One woman has discipline. One woman has none. One woman has compartments in her life that the public does not get to enter. One woman has no walls and no doors, and her entire life is a hallway with the lights on. Privacy is a flex. Privacy is a luxury. Privacy is an asset. Privacy is a moat. And the reason Remy is winning ultimately is because she still has a moat. The clone has no moat. The husband has no moat. They're exposed on every side. And exposure, in the long run, is fatal. Exposure is what kills people. Exposure is the disease that nobody talks about in this industry. And Remy has been treating her own privacy like medicine for years now. While everybody else got addicted to the dopamine of sharing, she got addicted to the safety of withholding. And that addiction is going to age beautifully. It already is. Let me hit the Vlad thing one more time before I close because it is the ultimate before and after. Papoose did a 2-hour Vlad interview. 2 hours. 2 whole hours of a man defending himself, explaining himself, contextualizing himself, redirecting attention, denying allegations, reframing narratives. 2 hours. And what did it accomplish? Did anybody change their mind? Did the timeline shift? Did the discourse soften? Did public opinion swing? No, none of the above. 2 hours of audio went into the void and produced exactly 0 meaningful narrative wins. Then Remy sits down with Joe and Jaida for an interview that is, what, an hour? Maybe 90 minutes? And in that one sitting, with one calm voice, with one strategic delivery, she completely reframed her own narrative, promoted her network, dropped the 1A 1B doctrine, blessed 50 Cent, set up future business deals, signaled to her supporters, signaled to her enemies, and walked out of that studio with the entire internet in her pocket. One sitting versus 2 hours. That is the difference between strategy and noise. That is the difference between a sniper and a guy with a megaphone in a parking lot. The sniper picks the shot. The megaphone guy yells. The sniper is more effective. Be the sniper. Never be the megaphone guy in the parking lot. Never, ever. Now I know somebody in the comments is going to say, well, why did Remy even say anything if she is so above it? Why mention 1A, 1B at all? Why mention the blogs? Why mention the clone? Why not just stay completely silent? And here's my answer to that. Because there is a difference between silence and absence. Silence is what you do when you are processing. Absence is what you do when you have already won, and now you are coming back to claim. Remy was silent for 2 years. Now she is claiming. There is a season for everything. There is a time to retreat into the cave, and there is a time to walk out of the cave with a new project and a new doctrine and a new blueprint. We are in the come out era. We are in the I have arrived era. We are in the watch what I do next era. And every word she said in that interview was calibrated to set up the next 18 months of moves. The Remy network needs marketing. The Remy network needs buzz. The Remy network needs attention. So she gave the public exactly the amount of personal disclosure necessary to drive engagement to the network without compromising the moat. She gave a tablespoon, not a cup, not a gallon, a tablespoon. And that tablespoon was perfectly seasoned. Perfectly seasoned. The 1A 1B line is going to be quoted for years. The attention is the root of all evil line is going to be quoted for years. The 50 Cent setup is going to be quoted for years. Each one of those moments is now a long-tail content asset that will keep paying her in cultural relevance long after the interview drops out of the algorithm. That is media value. That is brand equity. That is what 20-year veterans extract from a single press cycle. And the rest of these girls do not have a clue. Listen, I want to land this thing with a couple of takeaways because I do not want this video to just be a vibes video. I want you to walk away with something usable. Lessons you can write down. Notes you can apply to your own life. So here we go. Lesson 1. Build your 1B before you need it. If you are a creative, an artist, a hustler, a freelancer, anybody who is chasing a dream, you have to plant the secondary garden while the primary garden is still blooming. Do not wait for the harvest to fail. Do not wait for the algorithm to shift. Do not wait for the hit that may or may not come. Plant the secondary garden right now, while you still have time and energy and capital to plant it. Because the primary garden will eventually have a bad season. They all do. Every garden has a bad season. And if your only garden is the primary garden, a bad season turns into a famine, and a famine turns into desperation, and desperation turns into wifing up a clone in a boxing ring at 50. We have seen the movie. We know how it ends. Plant the secondary garden. Lesson 2. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the most expensive room you can rent. Most people cannot afford it. They cannot afford to be quiet because the world will move on without them, and they have not built the kind of brand or the kind of business or the kind of life that survives a quiet season. So they have to keep posting. They have to keep responding. They have to keep clipping. They have to keep dragging. They have to keep fueling the machine because the second they stop, the machine forgets them. But if you can build something that survives the quiet, if you can build a network, an app, a brand, a portfolio, a piece of real estate, a body of work that does not depend on your daily presence on the timeline, you unlock the ability to go quiet. And going quiet is when you actually grow. Going quiet is the gym. Coming back is the highlight reel. Most people only ever show up for the highlight reel. The pros, the real ones, live in the gym. Live in the gym. Get familiar with the gym. Lesson 3. Refuse to be food. Do not let the algorithm eat you. Do not let the blogs eat you. Do not let the clones eat you. Do not let the people whose entire careers depend on your pain feed off you. Cut the supply. Block the sources. Mute the keywords. Walk away from the comment sections. Build infrastructure that does not require their participation. The people who are eating your name for breakfast are not your audience. They are your predators. And predators only stop hunting you when you are no longer prey. Become not prey. Become unhuntable. Become the woman who simply cannot be found in the timeline, who is not where they are looking, who has moved her entire operation to a different building. That is the move. Refuse to be food. Refuse to be food. Lesson 4, and this is the last one, is about the difference between a champion and a challenger. Always know which one you are. Always. Champions do not have to ring the bell. Challengers have to. Champions do not have to make the call out. Challengers do. Champions do not have to remind anybody who they are. Challengers do. Every time you find yourself ringing the bell, calling somebody out, reminding the world who you are, ask yourself if you are operating from the seat of the champion or the seat of the challenger. If you are the champ, sit down. Eat your food. Account your money. Build your network. Let the challengers come to you. Let them swing at the air. Let them post the boxing ring photos. Let them style themselves with somebody's daughter. Let them launch the makeup line. Let them do all of it. And when the dust settles, when the algorithm moves on to the next pair of clones, when the smoke clears, you'll still be sitting in your chair with your network and your portfolio and your piece. That is the move. That has always been the move. Remy just demonstrated it on national audio for free, and I am bringing it to you in HD. Before I close out, let me address the people who are going to say I am being too hard on Clarissa. I am not. I want to be very, very clear. Empathy is a finite resource. There are people in this world who deserve the lion's share of my empathy. Mothers, children, workers, the sick, the grieving, the vulnerable, people who got dealt a hand they did not ask for. Empathy goes to those people first. Empathy does not go to a grown woman who chose, with full agency, to publicly date somebody else's husband, to spend years copying that person's style, to do photo shoots designed to bait that person into engagement, and to monetize the entire thing as a brand build. That is not a victim. That is a player. And players get judged by the hand they played. Clarissa played a hand. She played it loud. She played it on camera. She played it for years. The judgment is the cost of doing business. If she did not want to be judged, she should not have played the hand. So no, I am not being too hard. I am being fair. I am being honest. I am being a witness. And every commentator in our space who has been afraid to call this what it is has done the audience a disservice. We owe the audience the truth. The truth is the truth. The truth is the receipt. And I am here to read the receipt out loud, with a smile on my face and a network in my back pocket. Just like Remy. There is also a parenting layer here that I cannot let slip past. Because Remy is a mother. Papoose is a father. There are children involved. Children watching. Children who will eventually have phones to read every single thing every single adult said about their family during this chapter. Imagine being a kid in middle school and Googling your parents and finding the boxing ring photo shoot and the daughter-as-stylist and the makeup line and the 2-hour Vlad interview and the public clone discourse. Imagine the school day after that Google search. Imagine the sleepover. Imagine the lunch table. Imagine the WhatsApp group. We are leaving these children a public record they did not consent to, and the adults in charge are too distracted by the algorithm to think about what that record is going to feel like in 10 years. That is a parenting failure of the highest order. And the only adult in this story who seems to be even thinking about it is the one who is staying quiet, building infrastructure, and refusing to drag the children into the timeline. That is also part of why she does not respond. Not because she is weak. Not because she is broken. Because she is a mother. And mothers, real mothers, the actual ones, the ones who have done the work, do not feed the timeline at their children's expense. Okay, I am wrapping up. I know this has been a long one, but this needed to be said in full. This story has been told in fragments and sound bites and hot takes for too long, and I think we owe Remy, we owe ourselves, and we owe the culture a complete reading of this moment. So let me leave you with one final thought before I sign off. The reason Remy is going to win ultimately in the long ledger is not because she is louder. She is not. It is not because she is meaner. She is not. It is not because she is quicker on the clap back. She is not. The reason she is going to win is because she understood, before everybody else, that the rules of the game changed, and she changed her playbook accordingly. The new game is patience. The new game is infrastructure. The new game is privacy. The new game is platform ownership. The new game is the long compound. The new game is the network, the app, the show, the documentary, the book, the property, the syndicate, the empire. And while everybody else is still trying to win the old game, the loud game, the timeline game, the clapback game, the boxing ring game, she is quietly, methodically building the empire that is going to outlast the timeline by 50 years. The clone will be a footnote. The husband will be a cautionary tale. The makeup line will be a discontinued SKU. And Remy will be in her chair, on her network, doing her thing, calling her shots, signing her checks, and the people who said she lost will be writing the documentaries about how she actually won. So that is what I think about the Remy Ma interview. That is what I think about the 1A and 1B doctrine. That is what I think about the boxing ring. That is what I think about the daughter situation. That is what I think about the makeup line. That is what I think about the 2-hour Vlad debacle. That is what I think about all of it. I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Tell me where you agree. Tell me where you disagree. Tell me which woman in your own life is currently building her own 1B in silence. Tell me your own version of refusing to be food. I read every single comment, I do, and I get more out of those comments than y'all will ever know. If this video gave you something, if it shifted something, if it put a name to something you have been feeling but could not articulate, do me a favor and like the video so the algorithm puts it in front of the next woman who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, because we are going to keep building this conversation week after week, and there is so much more to unpack. We're going to talk about Remy's network rollout. We're going to talk about the next move from the clone camp. We're going to talk about Papoose's inevitable response, because there will be one. We're going to keep this thing rolling. So lock in. We're just getting started. Remember the doctrine. Mastery is quiet. Chaos is loud. Build the 1B. Refuse to be food. And do not, under any circumstances, do not ever ring the bell when you are already the champ. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.